the average time people spend on a blog post is 37 seconds, which is basically enough to do two things. One of them is to scan the page and figure out that it's not interesting and close it. The other is to scan the page and figure out that it is interesting and leave it open. And then go to whatever you were doing, because you're not going to read it. We're great at collecting things we will never use. You can create a podcast and put it on Spotify, but you will not get lead generation. I think people will actually prefer authenticity to quality. And this opens something that most companies don't do, which is bring your own professionals to the front and let them speak.
Freelancers will have ability to generate voice. Like I like voice of Jennifer Lopez, but make her younger, like 18 years old, and maybe with some accent from Eastern Europe.
Hello everyone and welcome to Silent Podcast. Today we have an amazing guest, Tal Florentin. He is a designer and founder and CEO of the AI startup Summurai. Among his accomplishments is multiple UX awards. He is an author of 2 books, Design for a Perfect Screen and Upwork Hacks. Also, he is a founder of Israeli UX certification program, lecturer and visitor of conferences and podcasts. So a few words about his startup. It's a software solution that helps to create branded playlists. The idea is that you can convert any text into branded audio playlist and help your customers and users to listen to it whenever they want on demand. Thank you for making today and visiting our podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, super happy because I am myself teaching designers sometimes, and I'd wish that more designers switched to product manager and product owner role. It would be super interesting to learn your story and maybe inspire some other designers also to take this jump and try something new in their careers.
I definitely agree. I have to say that for a long time I've been teaching user experience designers, and I think one of the goals is to understand that designers actually optimize the meeting point between human beings and technology. I guess this is something we're going to talk about a bit today, and I think this is a great origin for new products to arrive from. And not too many designers do that, take that jump and become founders, and I wish more would be brave enough to do so. So yeah, definitely aligned with you on that.
Great.
Cool.
Maybe to start our conversation and have some small intro, you can maybe talk about your transition from being UX designer to becoming a founder of the startup, because this is a switch between being an executor to visionary. So maybe there were some shifts in the mindset or approaches or processes that you felt.
I'm originally coming from software engineering. I'm a developer at the beginning. I spent my first 10 professional years as a developer, and other roles in software engineering, such as a team leader, project manager, system analyst, and such. And then I moved into world of creative. And I think one of the most important elements in my transition was that when I moved into design, I found a category that was very kind of spiritual, and coming from a very methodological state of mind. I was looking for algorithms to optimize design, and I didn't find any. I'm talking about pretty much 16 years ago. And I was starting to create my own design algorithms to make sense of why I'm doing things, because feeling good or thinking that this is what's the trend or the fashion wasn't a good enough answer for me. So I was looking for logic around that, and bringing that logic became my book and became my lectures, and kind of trying to make sense for other people how to create the right decisions, not just based on gut feeling. And over time, I used that method to design products for many companies. I designed more than 250 digital products so far. There's a much better statistic I love to share, which is the one saying that I designed so far 7.5 billion pixels. So after doing that much of decision making on designs, where you get a request or a function that you need to kind of decide how it's going to look and behave, uh, and doing that for others, I always spend time trying to figure out human beings and how technology meets them. And at a certain point, I found an opportunity that was kind of very much looked like an interesting opportunity, and I decided to make this one my own and step into entrepreneurship. It wasn't my first startup. I'll tell you that I had a prior startup that I founded, which was a very interesting idea. We created a platform for managing persona profiling. It was a tool for product designers and user experience designers and product managers to kind of share their insights about target audience and manage persona profiles with images and so on. It was a very niche product, and at a certain point I left it and moved forward, but Summurai became the right thing for me, and it was kind of a startup that chose me instead of the other way.
Mhm. I would like to circle back maybe again to the origins of the startup. Actually, it's really interesting how first we create or have ideas how to solve our problems or issues we have during our work. So, as you mentioned, you created a tool for persona. I wanted also to touch point if you felt that being an executor and like designer for other clients differs from being founder and visionary of your own project or product.
So I think there's a very different dynamic of being a designer for a different product and being the designer of your own product. It differs mainly because usually when I act as a service provider, and I did these 250 projects so far, I'm always coming from outside. I'm getting a lot of input about the vision and features and so on. I always have my point of view, and I have feedback on that, but I'm not the owner of the product story. I'm the one delivering the visual elements that will make it connect to people, to human beings. And at that point, I'm planning how it will work. I'm designing and moving it to the development. When I'm leading my own product, I'm always saying I'm paying the price for the bad designs I created, and I'm enjoying the good designs I created, and I'm following the life cycle of a product, learning what's evolving, and I'm always there with a feedback to the vision and so on. So it's a very different state of mind, and it's a much higher connection to results.
I agree. Also, like when you're part of the business, you also consider all trade offs that you want to make because this is all your money that you're investing. You want to cut corners and maybe to make some decisions to cut off some things to make it faster, easier. And with being like person who just delivers, you want to follow the best practice. You want to fight for specific patterns because they are like well established, etc. So yeah, it's really important to consider all uh,
I'll
stakeholders
give you a
and
different point of view on that. I think
oh,
it's worth mentioning for a second. When I started Samurai, I figured out that we're doing something right. We're playing in a playground which is uncharted. It's 1+1 that leads to a direct understanding that interesting things are going to happen on that field, and I'm going to try and kind of do things in that category. And since I'm a designer, I decided that I'm not going to skip any pixel that I'm feeling uncomfortable with that, and I'm going to do a pixel perfect for everything. Uh, Even though I'm not running with the concept of MVP, let's try something small and let's break it and move over time. I was saying that from the management system behind the scenes and the front for users, I'm always going to bring a pixel perfect idea. And if it will fail, we'll use it for something else that will happen in the future. And at the end, we'll have a lot of things to do. And this is how I'm going to manage the process. I think in many cases, when we meet the end user, we come with a very high end product, which is not trivial. Uh, and when you look at the management system I built for my own, it became the management system for other users, and it was ready for to market because it was already very optimized for clients because I didn't skip a pixel. It's not a trivial state of mind, but I decided this is kind of going to be my way. And even though Summurai is bootstrap and I never raised funds for that, I figured out that this would be the correct way for myself. And there was nobody else to fight that, which is awesome. I didn't need to convince anybody else,
You're a
which
nice.
would probably not agree or something. So benefits of not having a co-founder from business.
Yeah, that's also the balancing act of what is the right speed of moving with design, because sometimes you want to move super fast, and in startup incubators like Y Combinator they say move as fast as possible. If you worked more than a few weeks, it's not an MVP, it's something different. But in another way, you want to provide good results, and we designers usually tend to focus on perfection, and we have to learn how to find this balance.
I think there are types of products that you cannot bring 10% and test because you need a specific experience, and this experience has to work. If we talk about providing an audio player for a consumer, which is white labeled with a company branding, it has to work and move and play correctly, and it's really hard to do something which is kind of someday this will look fine. And I think in my specific category, audio is if you look at audio for many years, audio is very bad at presenting itself. Most audio players that you see embedded on websites suck, and they look horrible. They look like you needed to play something and you didn't have time, so you just put the first element that you bumped into. And audio players and audio UI is basically not good, and this is what I wanted to fix from a user experience point of view. I wanted to create players that look like player apps, uh, very professional player apps, but in a web interface, and there was nothing like that. And when we did that, I got some clients like one of the biggest radio stations in Israel, and they asked, we don't need your services from creating summaries for content or that. We just want your player because we were looking for a player for so long, and we need a good player because we're a radio station. So can you become our interface for our podcasts and programs? And I was saying, okay, this is totally not my target audience, but if it doesn't involve too much updates to the system to fit what you need, which is not the way I'm heading, go on and let's do that. So we're learning a lot about presenting content to users, and the design element is super major here because it wouldn't work if we were kind of trying to just make something work.
Actually, that's an interesting question of like, actually, first of all, products sometimes find their own path. And like, as you mentioned, that there was a need, you have a solution, bam, match, great. But I also know that you already have like few time attempts of pivoting the product, the startup idea. So I'm curious also, was it some kind of marker that prompted you that, yeah, we need to try something else, or this was a natural flow of, as you mentioned, that somebody came up and said that, okay, we want your product to fill up our gaps and our needs. So what was your reason for pivoting?
So I think if you look at Samurai for all of its journey, you would find two main pivots. One of them is moving from B2C to B2B2C, which is something that I think so many companies go through. We started by offering a service that's providing a way for busy people to stay up to date with content. And the basic idea at the beginning was whenever you bump into a content on the web, you're going to send it and get an audio summary for the article. This concept was 8 years ago, so I'm talking about no AI, no automatic audio that would work. And the service was based on human beings. There were students who were doing the summary and other who were recording the audio. And we launched that, and it was pretty awesome. Besides the business model, because we couldn't find a way for the users to cover the costs, and I didn't want to raise a company that's losing money. Uh, and then there was the move into, okay, so we were doing something right with the end users. Let's find our methods of bringing buyers that are companies with their marketing budget or so. So we moved into trying to make sense around the world of conferences, because there's a small amount of content and a lot of users, so the model would work. And then we moved into content marketing and started building tools for uh, allowing busy people to consume the blog post in a much more effective way. And the one who's going to provide that service is going to be the company instead of the end user. And optimizing our tools and our methods around that. And I think one of the things that happened is that maturity and understanding of why audio. If I'm talking about 5 years ago, when I was explaining audio, uh, people didn't get it. Even the most advanced professionals were talking about video, and were asking why are you kind of their idea about audio was it feels like we're going back from TV to radio in the state of mind of we're having TV. Why would you go backwards and bring radio? What's the sense of that? And from my point of view, I figured out that I was able to know much more by using audio, because it fell into times where I wasn't in front of something. I was driving and stuff like this. And by the way, my way of figuring out how audio works for me, because of the fact that it was 8 years ago, there was no podcast to talk about. Nobody did what we do now yet. I actually started my own service. I hired somebody to create summaries for articles that I'm not going to read. And when I saw that I'm not reading the summaries, I asked a professional voice talent to record them and send me MP3 files to email. And when I started listening to the audio files I got by email, I was able to talk as a speaker in a lecture about an article that was published on Forbes, and not tell anybody that I didn't read the article. So I found a way to figure out how to make things work for me. And I was saying, okay, audio is interesting. And then we moved into bringing that as a value, but the market wasn't ready to talk about audio. So I figured out it's going to happen. Let's wait and let's build tools, and let's optimize our messaging and optimize our tools. And nowadays we bring such a wide variety of abilities that are so mature, and we have that ability because we started very soon, and I didn't let the pixels. I kind of made sure the pixels are at the right place. So
Tal, there are like three areas that bring changes and open new windows of opportunities for new applications, new solutions. One is technology push, when there is new technologies that open some opportunities. Another is demographic changes, like something changes in people and then suddenly they want to listen audio, and maybe some regulational changes. Do you see some actual changes? What changes that the window of opportunity opened for products like Samurai?
we live in an era of too much information. Everybody needs to know so much about everything. Learning has changed. We need to learn uh, in a wide way and not just a specific topic. We need to know everything about everything. And what happens is that we don't have the time to do that. Uh, and we read less. And then audio became a solution, and it bumped into kind of our lives and offered a new option for us to consume our knowledge. And I always talk about two types of knowledge: the knowledge that you need if you're going to learn, I don't know, to code, to use Python.
Hmm.
Audio is not the way. I'm not going to listen to a podcast and kind of think and imagine code written. It's not working like that. I need 100% attention to do so. But all of the rest of the content uh, basically can't find that 100% attention because I have other things to do. And then I need a solution for that. And audio became the solution. So I think it's not technology. It's maybe more related to demographic. I'm not sure if it's the exact category, but it's more related to how we changed our behavior and how technology affected our lives. And I think this moved us to that category. And the more audio is evolving, and I think this is kind of the next step. Uh, if you look at video, for example, as a reference, video became widespread and then companies needed to use that. And then there were tools evolving, such as Vimeo, which provides ways for businesses to implement video in a way that fits their needs. And I think what happens with audio is that it became widely spread, and we all know Spotify and Apple podcasts and so on. But now it comes the area of where businesses want to use that, and it's pretty much limited because you can create a podcast and put it on Spotify, but you will not get lead generation. It will not be hosted properly on your website. You'll not get a call to action button which leads to whatever you need to do properly, and so on. There are many limitations because of the fact that you're stuck in somebody else's playground. And what we figured out is that as audio evolves, it will become a tool for businesses, because amazingly, businesses keep creating endless amount of textual content on their blogs and white papers and so on, even though the podcast category is evolving. So the reason they do so is because it doesn't provide them the tools that they need. So I think the next evolution of that is figuring out that the category of audio needs a business solution, and this is where we want to get in and provide all of that. And I think the last element, which kind of breaks the, I think it's the major change in what Summurai is all about. Uh, we mentioned the second pivot, and I think for a very long time we were offering a solution, which is creating web-based branded audio playlists that you can actually share with your audience, which are outside the podcast world and provide the business solutions. And then companies said, it's awesome and we want to use that, but can you provide us the audio and text services? And in a certain way, we were the agency that provides that, because I didn't want to say, no, I can't. I wanted to always open the door. And we became an agency that provides a tool of its own. And the next change is AI, or audio-based AI, becoming good enough to work with. So until a year ago, it just wasn't good enough. You wouldn't put your logo on top of an audio created by technology a year ago because it sounds okay, not good enough. And I think with the evolvement of AI around us, it became that good that production of audio content became a 2-minute issue. And now another door is open, and we need to take that and bring it again into the world of business and provide a tool that allows you to use that for your messaging and for your communication. And when you get all of these tools together, one side is AI, audio, and technology. The other side is podcast like offering, and you put it in the same place. This is where kind of magic happens.
Yeah, regarding technology, I guess there are some other changes also coming, like recently announced changes to internet protocols that will provide us zero latency in the internet, almost zero latency, because you can break the laws of physics. But streaming, games, and everything will be instant. And I don't know like how to use it, because buffering is okay, nobody cares. But that's
Yeah,
also
it goes back to if we're able to watch Netflix on a smartphone. I think audio is in a good situation. It's been a while since we've been stuck in front of an hourglass kind of. Well, I think we're in a good position. If it's going to be better, that's awesome.
and also AI agents. I don't know if you're into this topic, but did you think about getting back to your initial idea? Because I think that currently you could program somebody to search the content, to summarize it, and then having ability to read it aloud. Then you have the product, and this fixed problem you had previously, now it's perfect, much cheaper.
It's a funny question, because all of this journey goes back to going back to the initial idea, and it's definitely on the roadmap. We are going to do that, because when I look at the vision of what we're going to do, I would like at that point to bring audio to businesses and allow them to communicate in a much better way for both sides. They will have much higher engagement of their end users, and the end users will enjoy knowledge, and everybody will communicate much easy in a much easier way. uh, why not bring that white paper that was interesting, but I left it in my download folder and never opened it. Why not move it into my listening time in the traffic jam? Everybody will enjoy. I want to get that information instead of that podcast that I'm listening to, and you want me to consume that and be educated to get me down the funnel and closer to decision making. So let's make it happen. So
Our conversation sparked idea from you how to look for new startup ideas. You have to just get a list of all startups that had to pivot or close because their cost of doing business was too high, and see if thanks to AI it's changed. Now it's possible to do it cheaply. I think there are like hundreds of that now you can do because timing wasn't perfect previously, but now it's a time to do it.
Yeah, I think that regulations or like changing policies also could be an opportunity for product as yours, because just recently in September Google has released Google helpful content policy that actually pushes companies or like in Google they prioritize those resources that are more engaged with users. So I think that if this just opens possibility for your product that helping companies to make their content more helpful to users, they can also scale and earn more.
Currently, like everybody was just producing textual content just for Google to be successful to get to the users, and it wouldn't work anymore. Now you have to connect. Yeah. And so there is also a trend of digital detox. Like everybody is saying, we are spending too much screen time. We have to disconnect from our devices. And we have a digital natives generation, the people who are like listening to the podcast half of their time, and because they already are integrated in this new process.
I think there's another interesting opportunity we bumped into. Uh, Going back to audio and blogs, so you get traffic from SEO to your blog, and then people stare at the blog, and what we see, there's a statistic saying that the average time people spend on a blog post is 37 seconds, which is basically enough to do two things. One of them is to scan the page and figure out that it's not interesting and close it. The other is to scan the page and figure out that it is interesting and leave it open, and then go to whatever you were doing because you're not going to read it. And then what you start to see is people placing the play button on their blog. But coming from and we had customers asking us to do so and allow them to put the play button on blogs. So we did that, but from a user experience point of view, I always felt uncomfortable doing that because I was saying the problem of the users is not whether they're going to read or listen. Their problem is how to get rid of that open tab. And while thinking about that from a design point of view, I figured out that there is a different solution, which we called Plater. Plater is a mix of play later. So the idea is instead of read now, why don't you send this item for me to listen later? Because I have a great traffic jam that fits that type of content. But there's no connection between them because nowadays the tab that's on my desktop stays there, and the content on my phone when I'm listening to audio is completely different. There's no connection between them, and I don't have the time when I get into the car to take care of that because I want to drive home. So Plater basically allows you to send the item, so it will wait for you on an audio version on your mobile phone, and actually use a calendar to put it on your calendar on the right time for this to pop up, and enjoy listening for content that you discovered. Because I think the main idea is that discovery time is not the consumption time. They're very different, and we need to combine between them. And I think this is where SEO and audio become friends. And kind of, it's interesting because it's a very interesting customer journey. You start by getting into a web page on your desktop, and they continue the same content on an audio version on your mobile, and then you get the call to action button, which will lead you to the action that we need you to do at the end of the journey. So a very interesting combination of user journey in different devices on the same timeline, which I think this is where my user experience design skills allowed me to look at it from that point of view.
That's actually like I would love to use the product myself because I have tons of different tabs opened, and then I save them in the bookmarks. I have like tons of different folders with to read later, and I never go back to them actually. So
But you feel comfortable that they're saved, right?
yeah, like I know that there's
We're great at collecting things we will never use.
Yes, and it really works for me on YouTube with button watch later, and at the end you watch it later when you have time. Sometimes, at least it jumps into your eyes later, and you have another chance when maybe it's a more suitable time for you to watch that.
So I think if you take something practical from that, there's too much information and nobody finds the ways to work with that. And I think companies lose from that because their content gets into the later and isn't being used. I see companies spending tons of money creating white papers and optimizing the content, and kind of it goes through 7 versions of optimization. So each word will be optimized, and then people do download it, but they don't spend more than 2 seconds looking at it saying, wow, it's nice, I'll keep it here, and never use that. And then they lose because their message isn't being delivered. No, so just to cover that, I think turning that content into a playlist makes it much easier to consume that content, and it gives much higher chance that people will actually know what you wrote and continue your conversation after that.
Yeah, so for businesses, I guess there are different challenges, two main challenges. One, discoverability, like how do you make people find your content? And some businesses solve this, yes, with search engine optimization and maybe some other marketing stuff. And another is like consumption of the content. How do you make people to consume the content in a time that's more convenient for them and they will actually consume it? What we see in audio video segment that YouTube podcasts are growing faster than anything else because they solved discoverability. They can help businesses to put their content between other content they were looking for, and maybe that works better for them for search, because if somebody is searching for something, they will get it in YouTube search results and Google search results, and in this case discoverability works for them. If businesses will find a way how to help people to find their solution and then to consume in good way, like YouTube gives us ability to press watch later and then watch later, that's a solution, I guess. And unfortunately, podcast platforms struggle with that, and that's why YouTube grows and they not so much.
Interestingly, YouTube grows with audio content.
Yep.
So you both see podcasts create an visual version just for it to live on YouTube, even though nobody needs to look at our faces while we're talking. No added value besides seeing how we look and then going on. But they also have their pro model, which kind of monetizes the idea of closing your screen and getting the audio to continue, because then they don't have the ability to show ads, and they need to earn money. So interestingly, we all look at YouTube as a video platform, but in the recent years they built their solution to optimize it for audio, which is super interesting to kind of figuring it out that they're not just the video category.
It's interesting. There is a research that says that most people listen to YouTube, not watch it. Like, or maximum have a hybrid use of YouTube, so they sometimes watch something and then listen when it's not important for them. We like to dream, Sidon, to see the bright future when, like in 5, 10 years, robots will do everything for us, and we will be just happy with what's how world is looking now. Like just like to want to have a chat. Maybe you will share your vision of the future thanks to new technologies in audio area. How do you think? Is it possible that in the future every website, especially governmental websites, will have options for us to listen their content, not just to read what they have there? Because technologically it's possible, but still lots of brands are not super friendly and accessible. So can we solve this problem or not?
So you mentioned government, which is interesting because we always think that government is the last one to bring innovation and technology to human beings. And interestingly, we are one of the projects that I'm leading in the local market is combining our technology into government communication, and we already have four government offices that are sharing information in that way, because it's interesting. But when you look at websites, as you probably imagine them, of government and hundreds of offices trying to communicate, and they're not the best communicators. They usually share what they need to say instead of ask what you need to know, which is the basic idea of user experience design. They kind of lack that point of view. And I think they have so many messages and so many offices, so you get a website that's kind of, it doesn't the complexity of the problem is so high that even if you bring the best designers, it would still be pretty complex. It's like building a city that's so complicated that no matter how you're going to design it, it's still going to be very problematic to navigate there. And I think in some points you find messages that you can wrap in a new way. And I think what we found in each one of the government offices, a subject which is relevant to a big number of people in a very specific situation. And we want to reduce the friction there and have explanation done correctly. So, for example, we're working with an office and providing the information about people who just lost their job and they need to register and get paid from the country and so on. And there's a lot of regulation and guidelines on how to do so. They're written across the website in a very unpleasant way. Uh, and we figure out that it would make sense. The theoretical idea is, what if we could bring a guide that will teach you everything you need to know about that in that situation? The problem is that we don't have the human time to find that guide for each one of the people, and we're not going to produce a video course around that. And you're not, if even if we would, you're not going to watch it because you don't have time. But if we wrap all of this message in a playlist which is audio based, you'll actually listen to that 10 seconds after you start finding a new job or something like that. And then we talk about communication. So who's going to present this content? And we talk about tone of voice. Tone of voice is a term we all know in design, but if you look at the origins of that, tone of voice is an audio element. It's how we sound. And then who's the presenter you're going to bring? And then you take your message and you break it into short pieces and you wrap them in a playlist, which is a very complex process because all of the offices need to accept and approve the content, which goes back to regulation and what you can say and what you can't say, and it's kind of horrible process. But at the end, you get a playlist which is very specific, and it would be the easiest way for your audience to consume that content. And the funny thing is that it's like a Spotify podcast playlist, but it's completely not a podcast material. You wouldn't put that content on podcast because it doesn't make sense for this to live there, and nobody would go there. So, but it's still audio. So this is where we figured out that audio has so many places to live in outside of the podcast world, and we need that. And this is where technology is going to take us. It will bring us the tools to use that outside of that category and provide the needs. So each one of the items has a call to action button, which brings you to the right form at the right page on the web, so you don't need to look for that. So this is kind of, for me, this is world peace. This is kind of bringing you the optimized way to consume the content by reducing the need for you to find it on your own. And I think if we go back to discoverability, this is where this is so valuable that people start to send it from one person to another, because the HR wants to reduce the need for you to ask questions, so they will send it over because it's the best way to get to the right place, and then content starts to promote itself, which is kind of our dream.
Awesome.
Hmm.
I watched perhaps five of your podcasts, so it's super interesting. And one of the problem you mentioned that businesses have nobody to record content for them. Usually, that's a challenge because people are afraid of cameras. People are afraid of talking. If they read text for teleprompter from teleprompter, or even they have to read the text, it sounds robotic. Do you think that in the future we can solve this problem too, or at least try to solve this problem? Because we see the rise of tools that can help you fix your audio, that can help to fix your eyes if they look at camera or not, if they are jumping when you're reading text. How possible is that in 5 years, for example, somebody will build a product that will help me become a better host?
So let's break it into some elements. First of all, I think when you talk about providing audio content as a company or as an organization, you start by asking who is going to record it, and the automatic answer is a professional narrator. I think one of the things we miss is the opportunity to bring your own voice. And I can tell you, we created an app that's optimized for bloggers to record themselves and bring their voice. And one of the things that happened is that we tried to optimize audio quality, and it got so far. And in a certain situation, I actually tested the recording in a restaurant, and I was just playing with it to see what happens. And later on, I listened to that, and I saw that the content is actually including the background noises I had in the restaurant, which is a much more interesting content to listen to. So, and it also brings my own personality to the table. So I think people will actually prefer authenticity to quality. And this opens something that most companies don't do, which is bring your own professionals to the front and let them speak, because they're the most enthusiastic about what they have to say, and they know the most about that. And if you take their content and bring it to a narrator, it always sounds like they don't really believe themselves, even if their voice is awesome and they're super friendly. Uh, so this is one point where I think people should test and try to bring their own message. In certain cases, you actually can host a webinar and then reduce it into audio and just take the content that was there, and it will be a very good type of content to listen to. So this is one point. But then you talk about technology and you say, okay, so we have AI voices. So I just planned a lecture I'm going to give in an AI conference next week, and I put a demo of automated audio 7 years ago, 3 years ago, and on the last year. And I have to say that up until last year, it just wasn't good enough. You couldn't put it in front. So now AI voices in most languages are good enough for you to use them as your formal voices, which is awesome. By the way, in Hebrew, it's not there yet. We're completely not around that. It's a complicated language and nobody tries to solve that. So we're stuck in the 7 years ago stage, unfortunately. Uh, but I think the last change in AI is voice cloning, which is mind blowing. So I started to play with it recently because we want to bring it into our solution. So until a few months ago, you needed to record 20 hours of your time, and then you ask who is that crazy person who is going to 20 hours. We just tested our microphones for 3 seconds, and it was kind of strange to talk to ourselves, right? So it became a concept where you need around 2 to 3 minutes of your audio from something else that you did. And then voice cloning is going to learn your voice and allow you to use that. And I was getting to a place where I have myself speaking in multiple different languages fluently. And it's mind blowing because it's still me and it has my nuances. So I think if we got so far within a year or so, I don't know, 5 years from now, it's going to be a standard of everybody having their own voice recorded with 2 clicks. We're already there. It's not 5 years from now. It's right now. I think now it's the time for businesses to figure out what they do with that, because they can produce their content in multilingual versions and so on. Going back, by the way, to the business services, one of the things that we figured out that we need is a playlist that can switch languages. So we actually developed for the government, by the way, a playlist that can actually switch language to 4 languages, and then the textual content and the audio content changes accordingly, uh, which is a feature you don't have on podcasts so far. I guess, by the way, in 5 years ago, you will be able to listen to any podcast you need in any language you want.
I guess YouTube already announced something like that they plan to give creators ability to automatically translate their voice to some other languages you never speak.
But I think if people are afraid of AI taking over, I think this is just opening so many opportunities for professionals to do so many things, and it's going to be super interesting.
And you already mentioned that perhaps in the future we may have your product that will curate all the content for us, narrate everything for us, and we will have our 25 minutes in car on any other commute where we can listen all the news without any things that we don't want to listen, just very important information for us. So I truly believe that's a possibility, and I wish you the best luck creating this kind of product. Um,
Thank you so much.
and awesome. Regarding the brand voice, that's also a challenge because brands want to be authentic and then they want to be remembered. And there is also, like in this case, how do you see brand could use AI voices? Because if everybody can use the same voice, like they will somehow dilute their voice, and if everybody will have their own audio assistant that read news for them in their liked voice, should they just provide content and people will listen the information using their own voice, preferred voice, or do they have to give ability for people to select voices, or no, it's our brand, we decide it's female or male and what age of this person is, and you have to listen it in this voice. How do you see it?
So I think great questions to think about as designers for the next few years. Either it's personalized by the end user deciding who they want to listen to, or you as a brand try to figure out what's your message and how it looks like. I think these questions are not new because if you look at I don't know, advertisement in TV, they exist for so many years. Who's the presenter you're going to select? What a message is going to look like? What they're going to wear? It's endless. I think we see audio as a much more limited thing because you have a voice, but I guess it goes to interesting sound effects and things that you can implement. I actually try to avoid that because it becomes very fast, very annoying. But definitely something to look for, and I think the presenter who's in my in your ads and in your video could be the same one that I'm listening to for creating consistency. And this is kind of where you bring a very strong brand because you see, hear, and watch the same and read the same tone. And I think consistency is something that brands could improve in their different channels.
I just imagine that brands will collaborate with some famous celebrities and actors, and they will become their kind of avatar and voice of their brand. It'll be
So
interesting.
let's put something practical from a designer point of view. Think about a situation where you see an ad on the TV with a presenter. You go to the website, you see the same person, he's speaking to you or she, and then you get a registration email, and that email includes an audio version of that, so you don't need to read that, and it's coming from the voice of the same person you've seen on TV. And this is kind of where it becomes a very interesting story to talk about. I think we're very far away from the point where all of the companies will do that. If I look at the evolvement of design and user experience, it took 20 years, and it's still we have so much to do there. So I
Mhm.
think we're safe.
Do you think
Yeah.
we will have marketplaces of voices when people will, like freelancers, will have ability to generate voice? Like I like voice of Jennifer Lopez, but make her younger, like 18 years old, and maybe with some accent from Eastern Europe, and then try to sell this kind of voices to different users.
So I think we will be able to do that, but I think one of the elements that are not going to change is how human beings behave. I struggle to think that you are going to spend 1 minute of your day optimizing the type of content of audio you're going to listen to. We just want to go on with our lives. So I think this is where technology, in certain cases, provides too many options that nobody needs. So it's interesting to look at it from a production point of view because I'm, as a creator of a tone, I want the options to do that. But I'm not sure you as a user you're going to spend time optimizing what Jennifer Lopez version you're going to listen to when you want to get on with your lives and kind of get things done. You wouldn't care, and it would be interesting to find different voices. Some of them you like, some of them you won't like.
I think that on this positive tone and tune, we can wrap up today's conversation. I would like to thank you, Tal, for visiting us today. It was really pleasure to talking to you and touching a lot of different topics and combining into one story. We'll definitely closely monitor and keep track of your product, and we'll try to use it on our side. And yeah, thank you for your insights and have a great day.
Hmm.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks. So, guys, what are your thoughts? What do you think about the future of Tal product? Would you use it? Do you think that we will have more branded audio playlists that we will use in our daily commute and other time when we want to go away from our screens? Please share your opinions. Subscribe because we will have a lot of other interesting discussions and hope to see you soon.